Hey, what's up guys? MintCity here, back again with another video, and today we are doing something a little bit different. Now, I recently posted on my community tab asking if you guys had any questions for me personally, whether it be about YouTube, mobile gaming, or just me as a person. I was quite surprised with how many of you suggested that I insert my personality more into my videos, and I have tried doing that with my Let's Plays or my first impressions videos, and I also am going to scatter in intermittently videos like this where you guys can truly ask me anything and I will try to answer it to the best of my ability. And I just figured I'd try it and have some fun since this is the year of experimentation. So don't forget to leave a like, pop a sub, and comment right before we get into it. And thank you so much for everyone who commented. I picked out a handful of them, and again, I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. Now let's get right into it. We're starting off strong with a comment from your friend Jacob, one of my favorite creators and one of my favorite internet friends ever. He's a great guy. Go check out his channel if you haven't already. He's an indie gaming YouTuber and he kills it. He is doing a channel refresh right now, so this is a perfect time to go check out his content. Now he said, or asked, you are approached by a big publisher who says, Mint, we want you to head the development of a new mobile game and the direction is entirely up to you. You have whatever resources you need to make the game you want. What kind of game would you make? Genre, art style, etc. Now, something that you guys may not know about me is when I was partnered with Mob Crush and I was streaming a lot because of that, I was heavily into first-person shooter games on mobile. That sounds really weird, touchscreen only. And that's a genre that you necessarily don't think would work well on mobile, but I feel like over time, control options and controls in general have gotten so much better for the genre overall. And I have always been a junkie for this genre on mobile. I don't know what it is, just the portability of having competitive first-person shooters or just first-person shooters in general in your pocket is just insane. And I honestly think there is a huge lack of first-person shooters that are single-player only. I can only think of Gunfire Reborn off of the top of my head, and then the Nova series way back in the day, and other stuff by Gameloft way back in the day. But right now, modern mobile gaming has a huge niche that needs to be filled. A huge niche, that's an oxymoron, where I would create a single-player only first-person shooter experience with great touch controls, a great storyline, or as good as I could come up with, and I would just try to flesh it out and make it a decent length too and premium, and then I would slowly, depending on how successful it was, I would add DLCs with gaming content or even maybe subsequent entries similar to the Nova series back in the day. But I still think there's a huge missing opportunity there, and that's 100% what I would go with. There's a couple other genres, but I feel like that one is the safest bet since there are practically no single-player shooters on the App Store. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded. Let's go right into the next question. Rchip says, do you use iOS or Android? Now, I have exclusively used iOS for the past few years. I used to have an Android tablet way back in the day when I was streaming for Mobgrush yet again, but I actually gave it to a friend who desperately needed one, and I have not replaced an Android device, or gotten a new Android device since then. And the reason being, they're still quite expensive even though they are cheaper than iOS. But for gaming specifically, iOS just has it be in all avenues. There are specific cases like the Snapdragon or the Red Dragon gaming phone and stuff like that. There's very niche cases that are very expensive that are just as good as iOS. But at that price point, I might as well just stick with iOS in general. But eventually I do want to get at least some sort of Android device to help those of you who are my Android viewers. Don't think that I only care about iOS users. I know that a great deal of you are Android users, and I appreciate you guys watching my content anyways. Now, on to the next one. What's your opinion on Rocket League Sideswipe? When that game first came out, it actually made my top 10 games of the year. I think it was 2021, I think. I'm not sure. It made a Games of the Year list for me, which is huge. When that game first came out, wow, I was addicted to it. It was bite-sized, it was competitive, it was really fun, it had a skill ceiling, and it was just great. Now, I was disappointed that it wasn't the regular Rocket League that we have come to know and love. I think they could have easily made a cross-platform, cross-progression version of Rocket League on mobile. I know they could have done it. It's definitely feasible, but they didn't. And I think Rocket League Sideswipe, you reach like the ceiling of skill that you can because it's only on a 2D plane, and it gets really repetitive after a while. Having that 3D movement in regular Rocket League really increases the longevity of the game overall. So I played it heavily for a couple months, but after that, it kind of petered off for me, and I wasn't as into it as I used to be. So that's my thoughts on it. It's really good. It's really fun for a couple weeks or months, and then it gets really old really fast because it's the same thing every time. All right. Victor William says, do you use any gamepad for mobile? Now, I've always used a SteelSeries Nimbus. The build quality is really good. It feels heavy. You can tell it's not cheaply made, and that's what I've used way back in the day before they introduced controller support for PlayStation as well as Xbox. But now I would encourage you guys to use a Xbox or PlayStation controller, regardless if it's a PS4 or PS5 controller, and regardless of what Xbox controller it is. Because my SteelSeries Nimbus, the one problem it has is it doesn't have clicky left or right sticks, so that destroys the control option for that. And plus, since it's a SteelSeries Nimbus, sometimes games don't recognize what the controller is and it's not fully supported. But I've never had a problem with my Xbox controller connecting to my phone or my PS5 or PS4 controllers. So just use one of those if you're in the market. It's worth the extra money. There's some really cheap gaming controllers out there, but I'd honestly believe that Xbox and PS4 or PlayStation controllers are the best because games already are assuming that you're using one of those, so it's more seamless and it's more supported. All right, on to AZ's comment. Oh, 23MJ. Woo, the GOAT. Love Michael Jordan. How does one become a mobile game reviewer, get good enough to the point publishers and developers willingly send you games to review? I have only recently, within the past 6 months, gotten codes from developers and been reached out to by developers. And so I'm pretty new to this, so take everything with a grain of salt. But I didn't go out of my way for those. So whenever I do go out of my way to ask developers for codes, I'd say 9 times out of 10 I get a code for it because I usually provide a resume or a recent review that I've done and say, hey, this is probably something similar to what I would do for your game if I end up enjoying it. I'm always clear that I'm not guaranteed going to make content on a game unless I like it or I think it would make good content. So I'd never go in promising to make something. I never want to feel forced to give a certain opinion or forced to make content around of a game that I truly don't want to make content for. So that's why I do that. But the way you become a mobile gaming reviewer, I would say, is just create as much content as you can. And the more content you're making, the better you're going to be at it. That means the more content you're making, the more practice you're getting in. Because when you start, you're just going to suck. That's just a guarantee. And your content's not going to be good. But over time, you will see the improvement of your content. And as you're improving your content and getting that practice in, then people will be seeing the value that you bring with your mobile gaming content, specifically your reviews, and you'll build up a resume almost with all of the content you've made so far that you can direct developers and people to say, hey, this is what I could do for your game. I'd be happy to do that. So that's what I would have to say is if you're trying to be a mobile game reviewer, don't focus on getting the codes right off the bat. Focus on making your content good and everything else will fall into place, which might seem a little bit cheesy or a little bit cliche, but it's the truth. There's no shortcuts when it comes to YouTube or content creation. There's temporary shortcuts that'll get you places, but you won't have longevity. If you want to have longevity on YouTube and have credibility and a good reputation, the grind is long, but it's good. So, long-winded response yet again, but I'm enjoying these. Great question. All right, on to William. All right, William, let's see what you have. What's a game you love, but most other people don't? Hope I'm making sense. You are making sense. I can't really think of a game off the top. I'd say Epic 7 was one that a lot of people don't like because it's a gacha game. I hate to admit it, guys, but I used to love gacha games. I used to grind them heavily. Epic 7 was one of the ones that I grinded heavily. One of my favorite games of all time, if you missed that video that I posted recently, one of my favorite games of all time was a gacha game, and it was called Dragon's Watch. And I think those are pretty unpopular in the premium mobile game space. Like, if you go into Reddit, or the iOS gaming Reddit or the Android gaming Reddit, very rarely do you see people praising gacha games because they are predatory, and most of the time they don't offer much in terms of gameplay, and they just feel like cheap cash grabs. But I love gacha games. I just love the ability to collect units and grind and level them up in an RPG style format. It's just really fun for me. And luckily, I've never gotten too addicted to the spending aspect of the game. Like, I'll always, if I'm really into one of these games, I'll just buy the subscription model where they give me premium currency every day for logging in. And then I'll use that out, and I'll take it as a subscription. Like, I'm playing this game and I'm paying this much per month, and that's all it is. But not everyone can do that, and I understand why there's so much hate for gacha games, because they truly are, or 99% of them are very predatory, but that 1%, man, do I love, and that's pretty unpopular. All right, on to Nightcat's question. Could you do a racing games list or another hidden gems on Android? Of course. I'm actually working on one as we speak. I won't say what it is, but just know I've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline, and it'll eventually come, so don't worry. Thank you for that suggestion. One last question. Have you ever tried looking for games on other sources besides the Play Store or App Store? Tap Store, stuff as examples, because I used to use those apps to find games I didn't know it had on mobile, and some apps are exclusive to those stores. By the way, man, keep up the great work. Appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words, Nightcat. I really appreciate it. I do use other sources. I feel like the App Store is extremely lacking in discovering new games. Sometimes I will use the suggested games for you. Once you click on a game that you're interested in, you scroll to the bottom, it'll have suggested games for you. And sometimes I'll go down rabbit holes with that suggestion line of games and just click on each game there and go through, and it's kind of like a tree of, or a web of games to check out. But I don't use the App Store very often at all, to be completely honest. When I do, it's just that. I wrote for Touch Arcade for a time back in the day, if you didn't know. And so I was already a consumer of Touch Arcade content, the website. And I think they're still pretty good with their Hot Games of the Week list, or the Hot Games of the Month. So occasionally you'll find good games right there. And sorry that my dogs are fighting in the background, but that's just what you get when you're a dog dad, and they only fight when I am freaking recording. So I hope you guys leave a like for the dogs. But so I use Touch Arcade. I use pretty much everything. I do a lot of Googling. I use Twitter more than I ever thought I would. There's a lot of developers that are on Twitter that are creating mobile games. So if you just explore hashtags and explore Twitter, you might be surprised at how many developers are posting about the games that they are making, and then they'll let you know when they're released. So I'd say Twitter, Touch Arcade, other news sources on Google, and then the suggested tab of individual games on the App Store. That's where I look. But it really is kind of, you have to hone in. It's almost a skill of finding hidden gems, because there's so much crap out there. So you really have to use multiple avenues in conjunction with each other. Great question. All right, on to Silent Rocco. If you could design your own dream mobile game, what would it be and why? This is kind of similar to your friend Jacob's. Where my dream mobile game would be a solid, like, first-person shooter single-player offering on mobile that proves that it's viable. Like, if you brought a high-quality, high-fidelity experience with great gameplay, great story, great sound design and stuff, I really feel like it would at least have a cult following and at least break even or do better. And I just want to know how a single-player shooter would do on mobile nowadays. Gunfire Reborn kind of proved that it can be successful to a degree, but I want to see like a story-centric one. Yeah, that's honestly what my dream game would be. Or as a close second, since this is kind of harping on or rehashing what I answered on your friend Jacob's question, I would include Dragon Watch's battle system in a full-fledged single-player story-driven RPG or JRPG, where that battle system is plugged in there, similar to I would say Hero Emblems-esque, but with the battle system of Dragon's Watch. That's another game that I would love to make. Portrait mode, of course. Most of the games I would want to play, I would want to make are portrait mode, aside from the first-person shooter. But even then, it'd be interesting to see if you could get away with a first-person shooter in portrait mode. That might be an interesting thing to look into. All right, VVV iOS, he commented, or she, I think it's he, because I've watched his YouTube videos before. I might have asked you this already, so I apologize, my good dude. But what do you think is the best Android controller? Razer, Kishi, V2, Backbone, or just one of those controller clips and an Xbox One controller? I think the latter might be best. You are indeed correct. I've already kind of gone over the controller question. I would highly suggest just a clip. They're like $3 on Amazon, super cheap. And then get an Xbox One controller. And it's great. It's fantastic. Even if you get rechargeable batteries for your Xbox One controller, then it makes it even better. Yeah. The Rotor Riot, yeah, $12 open box, but it's not the greatest. That was one of the early iOS. Okay, yeah, I do remember that as well. So, yeah, I would heavily just suggest using an Xbox or a PS4 controller. As far as Android, like I said, I'm only using iOS, so I don't know what works better, but I would almost wager to say that it's still the best controller to get for Android. Hopefully that helps you out. All right, Weeju, what is your experience struggling to find good mobile games when you started the channel? What were you playing at the time? Were you serial installing mobile games trying to find good ones? Well, when I got my first iPod Touch, like way back before I even started creating content when I was still in high school, I was serial installing games because I was just so fascinated that there's this whole world of mobile gaming or gaming that is only on iPod Touches back in the day or smartphones. And so I started by serial installing, but obviously, as you guys have probably learned yourselves, it's a pain in the butt to sift through things yourself, and it's good to kind of funnel it down and consolidate it to as precise searches as you can get. So I went from serial installing, and then I did struggle a little bit at the start. I went to the App Store and I explored the App Store a variety of different ways. The App Store has changed so much now, but primarily back in the day when I was first starting, it was through Google, and I was basically just searching keywords and then mobile games at the end, and I would just really try to hone in on what keywords really work in getting hidden gems and trying as many games. Like, I'm sifting it out for you guys. I still download games all the time that absolutely suck, and I don't cover them on this channel. So it's always a struggle if you're a content creator, because you're sifting out the crap to get to the good stuff for your viewers. So I've gotten better. I'd say the ratio of like crap games to good games that I install, I'd say three-fourths of them are good and 1/4 of them is bad. So I'm getting that ratio improving, but it fluctuates all the time. So it's always a struggle as a creator, but maybe as a consumer or someone, hopefully I make that easier for you guys and you don't have to struggle at all. All right. I think this is the last one. Yes, the last but not least, Dave T. 2 questions. What made you want to get into mobile reviews? Have you considered reviews on retro hardware or emulators? I got into mobile gaming reviews just because it's always been, I can't describe it. My curiosity with mobile gaming and my passion for it just was there right from the get-go ever since I got an iPod Touch and my first smartphone. I was just so fascinated that there's this whole ecosystem of gaming that's on your phone. And not many people really talked about it back in the day. And still, it's like more known now, but it's not the gaming ecosystem that I want to be known by the masses. Like, everyone just thinks of the in-app purchase garbage and the super greedy monetization mobile games aspect of mobile gaming. I just want to bring to light the great stuff, the premium games, the indie games that can only be had on mobile, great ports that are better on mobile than on other platforms and stuff like that. So that's what made me want to get into it, is I just instantly had a passion for mobile gaming. I wanted to learn all I could about it. I've worked in the industry for Touch Arcade. I've created this channel. I've streamed games. I've tried and experienced it all, I'm trying to experience it all. So that's what made me get into mobile game reviews. and there was a huge lack of it too. I think there's more people than ever doing it, but honestly, try to name other variety mobile gaming content creators that are reviewing games and doing what I do. There's not many of them right now, or at least not many of them big enough to be known yet. And I'm not saying I'm big enough to be known yet. Like, I'm still a very small fish. But the only notable one I can think of is Nimble Thor. And I think we need more Nimble Thors out there for mobile gaming to put it on the map and show developers that there's an interest and a need for great games on mobile. All right, that was really long-winded. And have I ever considered reviews on retro hardware or emulators? Retro hardware as in like Super Nintendo, like retro stuff. I actually collect retro gaming things, believe it or not. I have posted a video on this way back in the day on my channel. I collect heavily for the PS1, the Super Nintendo, the Game Boy Advance. I love that area of things. I just have stopped collecting because it's so expensive, and I kind of want to sit on my collection, and eventually I'll probably use it as kind of a form of retirement, so to speak, or just a nice chunk of cash at the end of my life or whatever. Hopefully it increases in price, who knows. I've never thought about it. Emulators I've thought about just with Android, since emulators are so prevalent on Android. So I've definitely thought about it, but the main thing I've thought about reviewing outside of mobile gaming is just normal console games, because I have an Xbox Series S, I have a PS5, and I play games outside of just this. I have a Let's Play channel, or a MintCity Plays channel. It's linked on this channel. It says, or actually maybe it's not. Just type in MintCity space Plays, and you'll find it, and that's where I post Apex Legends content. And yes, Apex Legends is very popular now, but I was playing it way before it got popular, and I enjoy games outside of the mobile gaming space. I play a lot of indie games, and I play a lot of Apex Legends, and I've thought about starting a review channel outside of this channel just for indie games. But honestly, I don't have enough time to do that, but I've thought about it. So I hope that kind of answers your question. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too long-winded and too rambly, but I enjoy answering your guys' questions. It's fun. It's something different, and it makes me feel like I'm getting to know you guys in a weird way, even though I'm the one answering the questions. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comment section down below if you want this to be a semi-regular thing where I ask like maybe once a month or once every other month for questions or advice or anything for you guys to ask me, because I'm totally open to it. I mean, it's easy content to make. I'm still going to pour a little bit of effort into throwing up your guys' comments and stuff, but it's still less effort than my edited content of normal type, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm losing it. I'm feeling a little bit sick, so I apologize in advance, or towards the end of this video. Now you know it's not in advance. But I love you guys. I hope you guys are staying safe, and take it easy.